Hello everyone, and welcome back to the supporter-sponsored Q&A. My name is Tom, otherwise known as Titanium Legman, and this month, for the October 2023 Q&A, we have a number of good questions on hand submitted by all of you. If you don't know what this is, every month I do a Q&A at the end of the month approximately, wherein I take questions from my channel supporters, people in the community who are YouTube members or are patrons or whatever, and they submit questions, I answer them, and I get to have a little bit of a dialogue with you guys in the community. So this month we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 questions, so it shouldn't be too long of a video, but there are some nice options here. So if you are interested in the future having a question that you can submit and you feel like supporting me and the channel, then you can join as a YouTube member or on Patreon. Links for that are in the description, and I would very, very much appreciate it. So if that's something you're interested in, please do check it out. To start things off here with Tenchi, who asks, for my question, what's your favorite crit on a tabletop RPG table? And I had to think about this one, and I had a couple of good options, but then I remembered a certain instance from the campaign that I finished last year, I believe, that was DM'd by my friend Jordan, and that is the campaign where I was playing my Goliath Necromancer. My multi-classed Goliath Necromancer Barbarian, specifically. This is Slag, for those of you who know the channel, and you know this character. I love him. He's phenomenal. He's absolutely my favorite character that I've ever had the honor of playing. And we were nearing the end of the campaign when this particular instance happened. And we were doing battle for probably like the 5th time with the big bad. His favorite trick was he liked to clone himself. He was a wizard. And so he would just show up to do nefarious deeds, and we would wind up having to fight him. And we're getting very frustrated with him at this point, as I'm sure you can imagine. So we were in a very, very, like, life or death brawl. We had just dealt with this whole ritual where there was this angelic being that was trying to, like, influence the world to set things to rights, but in a very corrupted and overt, over-the-top way that was not good for people. It was kind of a problem to deal with, even though we were like level 17. You know, you're fighting a literal angel and one that had been powered up. Like, it was not good. We deal with that, and then here comes Vincent and his cohort of cronies, and we were not in good shape. So we were dragging ourselves through the fight. We were managing, and I had Vincent backed into a corner, and I knew if he tried to cast like anything, someone was going to go down, and if one person went down, it was going to snowball, because we'd already had a couple people go down in the middle of the fight. Everyone was low health. It was a bad time. So I said, okay, I'm not going to be able to deal the damage to kill this clone of him right now. Because I wasn't a damage dealer. I was the tank. I was very much the tank. And all of our other damage dealers were either downed or occupied. Like, okay. Here's a question. I have the grappler feat. Can I technically use my grappler feat to restrain Vincent in a way that would allow him, or prevent him, I should say, from casting any spells? And my DM Jordan was like, well, I mean, you could restrain him, like you could physically restrain his arms to prevent him from doing any like motions or hand gestures or anything that he would need to do, maybe drawing any materials from a component pouch. I said, okay. And I thought about it. And I thought about teleport spells, because I was afraid that he was going to try and run as well. It's like, what if I grappled his tongue with my fist? And we play online, so I couldn't see Jordan's face, but the kind of, like, noise that he made, he was definitely, he had to think about it. He was like, you could roll an attack roll and see if you can grapple his tongue. I was like, I would like to. And I rolled a nat 20. So I proceeded to punch my Goliath's fist into this normal human wizard's mouth, like shattering his teeth, and just grabbed his tongue and just held it. So he just got my fist in his mouth. He can't say anything, can't go anywhere, can't do anything. Like, as this 6'8" Goliath is just holding his tongue. It was phenomenal. I held him long enough that the damage dealers were able to come along, finish him off. When I pulled my fist out of his face, I had like 4 of his teeth embedded in my hand. And that's when I started collecting his teeth to forge into a set of a gauntlet, basically, of brass knuckles coated in the man's teeth. that I then proceeded to pummel him with later in the campaign. It was great. Being a necromancer, I was collecting bones and trinkets and things like that and decorating myself in them very, like, kind of witch doctor style. And it was great. So, yeah, I think that's probably my favorite crit of all time. I subdued the big bad in our, like, 4th fight with him by punching my fist into his face and grabbing his tongue with a nat 20. It was so good. I could not have hoped for a better outcome. So, yeah, that's my favorite, and thank you, Tenchi. If you guys have any particular favorite crit stories from your own tabletop games you would like to share, by all means, please drop it in the comments. I love to read about that type of stuff. Moving on to Canada. What's a genre of video game that you've never been interested in, and a genre that you are interested in but haven't delved into yet? Well, the first one's easy. Sports games. And not once have I ever been interested in sports games whatsoever. I'm not a sports person in general. I have no interest in spending my time playing video games with sports games. I know it's very popular. People love their FIFA and their NFL, their 2K, all that type of stuff. Totally hear you. Totally fine. Nothing against that. Just not for me. As for a genre that I'm interested in but haven't delved into yet, that's a harder one. That is a harder one because I have played a lot of genres of games. Like a lot of genres of games. I guess I'm thinking of specifically subgenres, really, right? Because like I've played farming games, I've played plenty, like so many RPGs, shooters, strategy games, real-time strategy games, puzzle games. I guess specifically, and some of you might laugh at me for this, but like small, kind of like indie, Earthbound-inspired RPGs. Like, because I've played Undertale, right? But when I think of what little I know of Earthbound, and I haven't played Earthbound either, so really, you could say that. But from what I understand of Undertale, like, its combat systems are not at all like Earthbound or the Mother series or anything. Whereas you've got other stuff like, say, Omori, that Jane and I streamed once and have always intended to get back to and never have, that seem to have much closer ties to that style of RPG. And seeing as how I love RPGs so much, the fact that I've never played any like that is kind of a black mark on my gaming history. So, barring any wider reaching genres that I can't really think of any like major genres that I haven't at least tried at some point. It would have been Metroidvanias in the past. That was the big one, but I've played plenty of them on the channel now, so that doesn't count. Yeah, I would say like Earthbound Mother style RPGs to kind of round out my RPG seasoning, shall you say. So, thank you for the question, Canada. It's definitely something I got to look into doing in the future. I mean, just Earthbound in general, the Mother series, obviously classics, much beloved, that I've never even seen. So, should probably do that at some point. Moving on to Caffeine System. What's something that you'd tell your younger self if you had the opportunity, let's say at least 5 years ago? And also, I should mention my questions are over here on my second monitor. So, if you see the reflection in my glasses when I look over, that's why. I mean, there's a lot of things that I could say, obviously. Going back a little bit further than 5 years, I would probably tell my teenage self that it's just not worth it to go to college. It's something I've talked about before on the channel, but I have a master's degree in communication studies. I have a double major in English writing and communication studies for my undergrad, and it's great. Like, I did learn a lot, but those degrees haven't done anything for me. Beyond my experience with communications, doing, broadcast, radio, TV stuff in college, that definitely, I think, helped me be more prepared for running and operating a YouTube channel. Beyond that, those degrees have done nothing for me. And, I mean, it just saddled me with a lot of debt and used a lot of time that I did not need to be saddled with or use. And now here I am. And, I mean, that's not an uncommon story at all. So many people have experienced that exact feeling of like, oh, such a waste. But it was absolutely a waste. And Jane will always remind me, well, if I didn't go to college, she and I would not have ever met. And that is absolutely a fair point, 100%. But as a just general like point of order, going to college was not worth it. So trade school probably would have been the way to go, honestly. Or like just starting to do YouTube earlier, because I was already good at writing and public speaking and all that type of stuff long before I went to college. So there's really no reason why I couldn't have just started doing YouTube earlier and maybe gotten on that train like 7 years earlier when it was a lot easier to get your foot in the door and have the channel be way bigger than it is now and just be doing what I'm doing anyway. So, yeah, I think that'd be the advice that I would give my younger self. That or, like, invest in Bitcoin super early before it blew up and then immediately dip out and never touch it again. Just make your money and get out. That might be the other one. But, yeah, thank you for the question, Caffeine. Light B asks, piggybacking off of caffeine a bit, what was a dream job you might have had as a kid? And I immediately know the answer to this one because it's something that it is so silly thinking back on now, but I was a kid. I didn't know. I wanted to be an inventor. Testing. Hey, there we go. Okay. Sorry about that. I accidentally pulled out the cord to my mic. So if there's a little bit of a jump cut and I'm in a slightly different position, that's because I had to fix it. So sorry about that. Anyway, yes, I wanted to be an inventor. I wanted to just make things and make money that way. What things? I don't know. Just come up with things and sell them, I guess. I was very much inspired of all things by Stu Pickles, the dad in the Rugrats. Like, this is how young we're talking here that I had this grand idea that this is what I was going to do with my life. But yeah, I wanted to be an inventor and invent things. I have no idea what that would look like now. Like, now you got someone who invents, like, a thing and, like, sells it, and then that's it. Not just, like, I'm going to sit in my workshop for hours on end and craft baubles and devices to make the world a better place that I might make oodles and doodles of money off of it. Not really a thing that happens. So, yeah, that was my grand idea. So, thank you for the question, like, very much appreciated. Moving on, we have IR Fine asking his normal wildcard question. If you don't know, every month Fine uses his support to give me the opportunity to answer whatever question I want, to basically present a topic to you guys and explain my feelings on it, which I very much appreciated. It's a fun time. And I think this month, I don't think I've done this yet this year. If I have, my apologies. This month, though, I'm going to talk about what my personal favorite game I've played this year is. Seeing as how it's been an absolutely insane year for games, there's all these absolutely worthy contenders for Game of the Year, and I've played a whole lot of them. And I have some thoughts about what my favorite has been. And it's a toss-up between Final Fantasy 16, of course, Baldur's Gate 3, of course, and then Armored Core 6, of course. And we'll go through the two that I am not going to pick first quickly and explain why, and then I'll talk about the one that I am going to pick. So first off, Final Fantasy 16. I absolutely adore Final Fantasy 16. It's phenomenal. It's so good. It's so much fun. And when I first played it, I absolutely was thinking that it was going to be my Game of the Year. I have no qualms with it whatsoever. Like, yeah, some of the side quests could have been placed a little bit better and paced a little bit better. That is the only complaint I have. That game is a masterpiece in my eyes. The gameplay, the music, the visuals, the writing, the characterization. It's so good. It's so freaking good, man. But it loses to our winner through no fault of its own. So it's not Final Fantasy 16. Baldur's Gate 3, what I think is actually going to win Game of the Year in general, is phenomenal. I adore it. Again, the visuals, the gameplay, the storytelling, the character writing, the level of customization, the level of reactivity the world has to everything that you do in it. All phenomenal. Absolutely excellent. I adore every second that I spend playing it. But it's been very buggy. And, like, I know they've done a lot of patches to improve the stability of the game, and a lot of people have talked about how buggy the game is. And while that doesn't take away from its overall quality for me, like, I don't enjoy... my enjoyment of it has not been lessened due to the graphical issues and crashing, and, like, I lost a bunch of my saves. That one turned me off for a little while. I lost my saves recently and had to replay back through, like, 3 hours of content. I did not like that. Like, they just vanished. Just gone. Just my most recent saves as well. All my old ones were still there. Absolutely terrible. I hated it. But because of that, I can't in good faith say it's been my favorite game that I've played this year, because it's made for a rocky play experience that I don't appreciate, even though the game itself is so good. No, what's actually winning for me, and I don't see anything beating it at this point, we're in the beginning of November. I mean, Persona 5 Tactica is coming out, and I'm sure that's going to be a blast, but I don't see it beating this. It's got to be Armored Core 6. It has to be. Like, Armored Core 6 as a return to one of my favorite gaming series of all time. That helps it beat out Final Fantasy 16. And similarly to Final Fantasy 16, it is such a polished experience. It looks incredible. It feels incredible to play. It feels like an Armored Core game while incorporating so much of the modern FromSoft design. The story is awesome. The characters are awesome. Just everything about it is perfect. So I really can't in good faith say that anything other than Armored Core 6 wins it for me. Doesn't mean that those other games are not equally excellent and don't deserve any potential consideration for Game of the Year and won't be considered some of my favorite games of all time. Still, they will be. Absolutely. No doubt about that. But Armored Core 6 is just distilled perfection in a bottle for me. So it has to be that. Thank you for the wildcard find, and that is my answer. Moving on to Ludwig. This is a good one. The tortoise lays on its back, its belly baking in the hot sun, beating its legs, trying to turn itself over, but it can't. Not without your help. But you're not helping. Why is that? Well, listen here, Ludwig. I remember what that turtle did. I was here on this beach, 1996, a wee little 4-year-old. And I remember it. And it's going to remember me now. That's really all I have to say about that. It's all the consideration it deserves. Thank you for the question, Ludwig. Moving on to Riley Thatcher, who asks, I want to know which video game character have you had the biggest crush on, or the character that has made you cry the most? I think I'm going to do both, honestly, because I've got, I think, fun answers for both of them. So the first one should be obvious for any of you who know me at this point, but it has to be Marianne from Fire Emblem Three Houses. I absolutely, to this day, still have a crush on this character. Like, I've got a thing for the whole sleepy girl aesthetic. I like just her overall design. She's an interesting character, one of the more interesting characters of the side characters in Three Houses to me, because of her whole the curse of her crest and the questions about what happens to her during the time skip if you don't play Golden Deer or you don't recruit her. She disappears. It's implied something very bad happened. She's just a very interesting character. I like her voice. I really like her design. And I just like the way that her story develops. So Marianne is absolutely the character, I think, in pretty much all of gaming that I have had the strongest crush on, if you will. So that's an easy one. As for a character that has made me cry the most, I had one answer originally, and then I kind of changed my mind, but I'll quickly go through both of them. The first answer that I had was actually Caden from Mass Effect 1. Well, and for Mass Effect in general, but for me it was Mass Effect 1 because of decisions that I made. If you didn't know, Caden is one of the party members, one of the 2 human party members who joins you very early in the game in Mass Effect 1 and is with you for the whole game. He's a very compelling character, has a lot of very interesting backstory, very well written, very well voice acted, and you definitely can form a bond with him. And he, along with Ashley, are the pair that are one of the big decision points in the final mission of the game. Long story short, you go through the final mission, or the lead up to the final mission technically, and there's a decision point where you have to help one or the other. They're being overrun, things are happening, and whoever you choose to not help will die. And it was a very hard decision for me, but it came down to the fact that Ashley was the character that I'd actually been using a lot in my party, and I was playing Male Shepherd, and I was trying to romance her. And Caden, I hadn't really been using in my party, and while I really liked him, he hadn't had a big presence in my game up to that point. So I chose to sacrifice Caden. But it was still a really hard decision because I did like his character so much, and just the little bit of dialogue you get with him as he's fighting and dying was so good. He was so understanding of why you made the choice that it made it hurt so much more. The fact that he was so on board made it hurt so much more. And I remember actually like being emotionally distraught about it. I don't think I actually cried, but like no game had ever made me feel that way before. And it was very powerful. And I will always remember that as a core gaming memory of mine. And it's part of why I love Mass Effect so much to this day. However, the question was, what character have I cried over the most? And I think I have to give that kind of to the collective cast of Nier Automata. Like, I don't think I've ever cried more during a game than in the finale of Nier Automata, with the credits sequence and everything, because of the prospect of saving these characters that we had come to love so much. It was so powerful. And I mean, I've cried for a few different things on the channel. Outer Wilds, Nier Automata being probably the two foremost. The Outer Wilds is just more like the enormity of everything, whereas Nier Automata was for those characters. So I think that's where I have to go with my answer. But thank you for the question, Riley. That was a good one. I like that very much so. And finally, to wrap things up, we have Yoking Haddock, who asks, what's your favorite kind of parasite? A little smiley face. Well, it's this one. She's on screen right now. And for me right now, she's sitting over there in the window. It's Trixie. She's my little parasite. Not the answer that you were looking for, I'm sure. But I don't know much about actual parasites, like to even give a satirical answer or a joking answer. And I mean, for all intents and purposes, Trixie is a parasite. She contributes basically nothing other than being cute and cuddly. And I have to spend time playing with her and feeding her and cleaning up after her and all that type of stuff. So I'd say that's a parasite. Thank you for the question, Yoking. And thank you for the questions, everyone. This has been a little bit of a snappier Q&A and definitely a more upbeat Q&A than the last one. So thank you all for bearing with me as I've been adjusting to working in nearly full time and then doing YouTube still and trying to find that work-life balance. And it's been a whole lot. But yeah, I appreciate you guys hanging out and continuing to support, continuing to ask questions, and continuing to allow me to do stuff like the Q&A, because it's always a good time. We're going to wrap this one up here, though, so if you... So again, if you would like to be able to submit questions in the future, you can check out YouTube memberships and Patreon in the description. I would absolutely appreciate any and all support, but it's never necessary. It's just if it's something that you would like to do, it'd be very much appreciated. My name has been Tom, otherwise known as Titanium Legman. I hope you all have a good night. Stay safe and healthy out there. And remember, be good to each other. Bye now.